That is right. What is up, wrestling fans? It's Thursday night. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and that means you are locked in to the NI Wrestling team, talking all things pro grappling. That's right. We are on Wrestling Night Live, and although we are pre-recorded, we are still doing the show technically live to record. So, there's that. But thank you for joining us on the Nerd Initiative Facebook. Of course, also the Twitch, X, Kick, and most importantly, LinkedIn. Nah, I'm joking. The most important is YouTube. Make sure you're getting on over to YouTube because you never know. Lots more content coming over that way. But we'll get to that in a minute when I talk about business. I am your host. I am also the head of NI Wrestling. My name is Rich. And joining me in the co-pilot chair as she does each and every week, she is the hunter of the Pokemans because she's got to catch them all. She is the guru of cosplay. And most importantly for this show, she is a pro grappling aficionado. She is the first lady of NI Wrestling. It is Miss Sammy. How are you this week, Sammy?
I'm doing okay, but I'm struggling with something, Rich. We're going to New York Comic-Con next week, and I don't think I'm going to wear a cosplay, and it's just eating at my soul. I don't know what to do.
Yes. You know what you need? You need some adrenaline in your soul.
And some pyro to go with it. But
something Cody Rhodes. Anyways, maybe you should come as the Rhodeslander.
Oh, maybe that's a good one. That is a good one. I don't know
the
about the
Rhodeslander.
Tattoo, it's kind of a lot.
I mean, did you see the set footage from Street Fighter? They covered the tattoo. Yeah, so if you haven't seen, there is a promotional picture of him as Guile. Looks pretty good. I'll give him credit. And the tattoo is covered. So no neck tattoo in Street Fighter.
Not to get too far off topic, but I watched Heels, and then Punk, he's in that, and they covered up his tattoos, and it's just very weird.
It is weird when you see CM Punk with no tattoos. I admit that. It was very weird, especially the Pepsi one, Pepsi.
A little off-putting.
I still love the fact that he allowed all of us. He said we're all allowed to call him Pepsi Phil if we want.
Ooh.
Remember, that was a thing when he was in AEW. I think that still stands. If we ever get to interview CM Punk, I'm going to say, hey, respectfully, can I call you Pepsi Phil since you said we could?
Well,
it's respectfully, right?
Well, we'll have to run it by Danhausen. We'll see him in New York.
Yes, I will see Danhausen at New York Comic Con. I'm gonna try to see if I can get some something from Danhausen. We'll see. We'll find out.
I think we owe him something.
Well, I mean, last year he was so gracious because peek behind the curtain. I know we're getting off topic when we're talking about New York Comic Con. My wife is not a big wrestling fan. Mm-hmm. However, she loves that Danhausen. So as a gift for my wife, I have it right over here. I'll show everybody. I went and there was a special pop New York Comic Con exclusive. You can see the tag, Danhausen. And I told Danhausen that my wife does not like pro wrestling, but loves that Danhausen. So Danhausen wrote a message. He said, Amanda Hausen, very cursed Danhausen. So he cursed my wife. And there's a photo that Sammy was actually took the photo of me and Danhausen, where he then actually cursed my wife. So my wife has been cursed by Danhausen.
Permanently.
So, permanently. But he did write Amanda Hausen, though, which is kind of awesome.
It's true.
So giving him all the credit in the world. So yes, we will be bumping into him as well as a bunch of other things. Michael Kingston, the writer of Headlock Comics, he's going to be there. So I'm going to be stopping by his table. Usually there's some, like last year because of him, I got to meet Vampiro, which was pretty awesome. So a lot of wrestling stuff. So hopefully I can get some more content. Well, New York City for pro wrestling. So keep your eyes on the Nerd Initiative YouTube channel because let's be honest, next week, Nerd Initiative will be we'll have a strong group down at New York Comic Con. Check it out, all the social medias. You're going to want to check those out. You're going to want to check out the YouTube channel because we got a lot of content coming out of New York Comic Con next week. And of course, to keep an eye on all that and to get all that information, head on over to nerdinitiative.com, the home of pop culture positivity. That is the place that powers all of this. So make sure you go check out wrestling, TV, movies, comics, and more. The home of pop culture positivity, nerdinitiative.com. And as I pointed out, the show is still, even though it's pre-recorded, we're putting them out live, like as a live stream. So they are still going up on the Facebook, the Kick, the Twitch, the X, as we always like to talk about, the LinkedIn. So make sure you're following us on all those great social sites as well. But of course, you're going to want to go over to the Nerd Initiative YouTube channel if you're not already watching us there. And of course, make sure you smash that subscribe button. Click the bell icon for notifications so you know whenever we go live or whenever a new video gets put up. And last but certainly not least, tap that thumbs up to let the bosses know you want more pro grappling and content in general from the home of pop culture positivity on YouTube, the Nerd Initiative YouTube channel. So now that we've spent some time talking about New York Comic Con and everything else, let's speak on what the people want to talk about. Let's talk about some pro wrestling. And later on, as you see, it's a stock up or down underneath, and I even put stock up or down for WWE and AEW. We're going to talk not about money per se, but we're going to talk about in the second half of this show where we see both companies coming into Q4. We're in Q4. It's the end of the year. What are they doing good? What needs to be worked on to finish out 2025 strong to give the best foot forward in 2026? So we're going to talk about that. But before then, we got some pretty much NXT/TNA news to talk about because last week, this past weekend, No Mercy went down from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, the Fort Lauderdale War Memorial to be precise. And this went down Saturday night. One hell of a happening. And so we're going to start off the show by talking a little bit about No Mercy and what happened. I'm going to do a real quick rundown, Sammy. Then we're just going to give our overall thoughts on what we thought of No Mercy before talking about Showdown. We'll talk about that after, but let's go through the rundown. Your opening contest was a singles match where Javon Evans would defeat Josh Briggs in 16 minutes and 28 seconds. Next up, the WWE Women's Speed Championship was on the line as Sol Ruca, your Women's Speed Champion and also your NXT Women's North American Champion, would take on the replacement. Of course, she was originally supposed to go out there and take on Lanny Reed, but Laney got hurt, so Jada Parker stepped up. This match got 4 minutes and 48 seconds. Your winner and still WWE Women's Speed Champion Sol Ruca. You would then get the weaponized steel cage match as Jordan Grace would defeat Blake Monroe in 16 minutes and 12 seconds. Following that up was the NXT North American Championship match. Your champion, All Ego Ethan Page, taking on Tavion Heights. This match got 10 minutes and 20 seconds. And at the end of the day, your winner and still NXT North American Champion, All Ego Ethan Page. And then we had the NXT Women's Championship on the line. Your champion, representing Fatal Influence, JC Jane, with Phelan Henley in her corner, would take on the number one contender, Lola Vice. This match got 18 minutes and 35 seconds. And then with the help of a masked, assailant, your winner and still NXT Women's Champion, JC Jane. And in the main event of the evening, the NXT Championship was on the line as your champion, the dominant Oba Femi, took on the number one contender, the absolute one, Ricky Saints. This match got 17 minutes, 20 seconds. And at the end of the day, your winner and new NXT champion, the absolute one, Ricky Saints. So, Sammy, that was the rundown of what happened at WWE No Mercy. I almost said NXT No Mercy, but WWE No Mercy. Let's give some thoughts. Where would you like to start with your thoughts?
I think you have to start right from the rip. Ricky Saints, new champion, dethroning Oba Femi in a fantastic bout. I mean, we're getting ready to talk about TNA and the the crossover angle. I won't use the I word. And I think you have to really talk about the AEW. You got Ethan Page and Ricky Saints leading the charge in NXT, and it's been fantastic. All Ego Ethan Page, same thing, had another banger match on the night. Where else can you go from here? You got all Ricky Saints, champion. Oba Femi was a great champion.
I mean, I'm assuming this means Oba Femi is probably close to moving up to the main roster. I mean, let's be honest, he's been ready to move up for quite a while, so this is kind of good news in a lot of ways. And then, of course, Ricky Saints putting the ball in his hands. Much like Cody Rhodes, he wants to be the quarterback. He wants to show that they're, and this is not a shot at AEW, but I mean, as a professional, as somebody who may have not been used to his full potential, especially in his own opinion, which he's definitely garnered the right to talk about. Now he's got the ball in his hands, and now he can show, hey, you fumbled, and once again, that's not an insult at All Elite Wrestling or Tony Khan or anybody else. It's just simply stated that, when you get the opportunity to show up and show out, like Ricky Saints is going to get here, right now, this is a good time. This is good things. Speaking of which, so you mentioned Ethan Page, another guy really felt like he was misused and mistreated in a lot of ways. We've all thought the same thing. And he's had one hell of an NXT career. He's been ready to go to the main roster, in my opinion, for a long time. But hey, he's killing it down there and had a tremendous match with Tavion Heights, who I thought had brought out a little more in Tavion Heights. We know he's a great technical wrestler, but I feel like there's a little more that came out in this mini feud that he had with Ethan Page, because I think Ethan Page brings that out in everybody. And we'll talk about Ethan Page's next technical feud coming up, right? But I really also want to shine a showcase on the women's division. 3 matches. Half the matches on the card are in the NXT women's division. There's 6 matches, and 3 of them were in the women's division. And yeah, Sal Ruka and Jada Parker was a little short match. I mean, my only takeaway there is I don't know why it wasn't for the NXT Women's North American title. I don't understand why the belt that was created for X, the Speed title, was defended on a WWE paper, PLE, if you will. That's besides me. I'm not going to sit here and just crap on it. Decent for what it was, but I think it could have been better if it was for the North American Championship. And then you have, true. And then you have 2 bangers though. You had Jordan Grace and Blake Monroe in that weaponized cage match. And oh man, they pulled out stops. Blake Monroe cutting the hair of Jordan Grace. You had some really big spots in the match. Jordan Grace, of course, coming out on top. Dug it. And then JC Jane, who continues to impress me, finding new ways to win matches, but also getting it done in the ring. I think her and Lola Vice had a nice match. The ending was a little convoluted. However, it did add, because obviously with the real life departure from WWE of Jasmine Nix, having the fact of like she got written out, she got attacked by a masked person, and now Lola Vice gets attacked by a masked person. Comes to find out, Lainey Reed is the masked woman, and says, "Hey, I got rid of Jasmine because she never deserved to be in Fatal Influence." Kind of a throwback to kind of write somebody off. Period. And then, of course, taking out Lola Vice to join the group. I think that ended up being good. And the mystery of it all ended good, because think about it, the internet was speculating their asses off until Tuesday. Like I heard Mandy Rose's name get thrown around like she was coming back to NXT. So I think WWE really capitalized, specifically Chef Michaels, really capitalized on that angle. Your thoughts on all the ladies matches, Sam?
Well, I mean, we've talked about women's wrestling in 2025 and how it's really helped and been really defined this year as one of the, key things really strong in professional wrestling. And we're not going to sit here and say everything's been great in women's wrestling. There's been some interesting things that have happened as well. But when you look at the overall quality of the product, it's women's wrestling that's really leading the charge this year.
Oh, absolutely. And then I got to be remiss if I don't say about Javon Evans is every bit the future of this business. I heard a list came out where they listed him as the most exciting young wrestler to watch out for. I think he's definitely up there. Him and Leon Slater right now, which we're kind of getting to see a little bit of them. Yeah. And then, of course, at Bound for Glory, we're going to get that match. We're getting Leon Slater versus Javon Evans, which I think is going to be phenomenal. Can't wait for, that's going down next weekend. So we'll definitely be talking about that next week on the show. But I thought, once again, Josh Briggs, though, impressed me as well. Went out there and had a nice, solid match. They gave him a lot of time. And I think that the two of them just, not only did they eat up the time, they definitely showed up and showed out. So kudos and credits to them. So overall, I thought the No Mercy was a very good PLE, showing once again that NXT is the brand that delivers in the World Wrestling Entertainment realm, especially when it comes to PLEs and TV in this instance, and I think that they did a good job at No Mercy of not watering down the things with the TNA stuff. They made it very centric to NXT, other than announcing that we would be getting the NXT TNA Invasion. And they even advertised it as Invasion, right? Going down October 7th, which we're going to talk about here in a second. But then we get to NXT TV and we get this graphic, NXT Showdown. I guess they didn't like the Invasion name after all, Sammy. So October 7th, which is this upcoming Tuesday night, on the CW, in place of the normal show, we're getting a special NXT versus TNA Showdown event. So before I list off the matches, what is your thoughts on announcing it at No Mercy as Invasion and then going, never mind, we botched it, we're calling it Showdown? Although it does look like the Invasion logo.
This to me, this really just boils down to dollars and cents. It's a money thing. We could dive more into the politics. You could dive more into some of the, commentary that was made about it. But at the end of the day, this is about money. And people said that this was potentially offensive, that was ruffling feathers. So what do you do in that? You worry about your bottom line and you change it. And that's exactly what WWE did. They changed it.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not too offended by it. I'm not. I understand the business side of it, but it's kind of weird to change, like think about that beforehand. It's kind of one of those things where it's like now it's kind of like it looks weird, the bait and switch, if you will. But let's talk about the show. I want to say before we talk about this, I mentioned Bound for Glory goes down a week from Sunday. So this is one of the final stops because you'll have the NXT Showdown, and then you'll have the final Impact coming up on Thursday before Bound for Glory. And believe it or not, this Showdown card has some really big implications that are going to go into Bound for Glory. We'll talk about it more when we're running down the card, but here's the card. We have a match that has been a few years in the making, as the NXT North American Championship will be on the line, as All Ego Ethan Page will take on TNA's Mustafa Ali. And I love what they did in this promo. Ethan Page, hey, who's next? We got the whole exiting the car, and then we got the music, and then the promo. I love the promo from both of these men. Ethan Page kind of touching on the fact that you couldn't get the job done here, and then you had to go elsewhere, whereas I've had success here. To Mustafa Ali saying, hey, listen, when I left this company, I was slated to get a North American title shot. The day of my title shot, I got a phone call, and I was let go for my job. So I've been number one contender for the North American title now for, let's check the watch, quite some time. So I'm finally getting my just title shot. I thought this was really good storytelling. What say you?
I mean, it's amazing storytelling, and it's a great clapback, because if you simply just lean into the idea of, well, you don't work here anymore, you were let go. I mean, it's tough to come back from that. So it's great that they have that in their back pocket to play into. It's like, well, I'm actually no.
And I could honestly, I could see a Mustafa Ali North American title win.
Well, I mean, right? If you're really going for this and you're really going to do it properly, it has to be kind of 50-50. But 50-50, and WWE guys have to lose to TNA, and TNA guys have to lose to WWE. Otherwise, it doesn't work. One cannot bury the other. Otherwise, this is over, much like the Invasion angle was.
I was going to say,
started all those years ago.
It's Invasion all over again, the real one. All right, so let's go on to this one. This one's really got big time implications for Bound for Glory. Winner takes all match for the TNA World Tag Team titles and the NXT Tag Team Championships. Everyone is banned from ringside, so no other members of Dark State will be there. No TNA help, as your TNA World Tag Team Champions, the Hardy Boys, Matt and Jeff Hardy, will take on Dark State, Dion Lennox, and Osiris Griffin, your NXT Tag Team Champions. Once again, we know at Bound for Glory, one of the big matches, it will be a tables match between the Dudley Boys, Team 3D. I think they're calling them Team 3D for this match, correct?
They are
and
Team 3D,
and the Hardys.
But they in a promo, they did go out and say, no, we're the Dudley Boys. So.
Well, with the deal with WWE, that means they get to say they're the Dudley Boys. So this is the first time technically in TNA that we're going to get to see the Mother and Dudley Boys. We're going to get Bubba Ray and Devon Dudley, not Brother Devon and Brother Ray, or Bully Ray later on. But remember, it was Brother Ray first when they first came over.
Brother.
Before he did his heel run.
Fantastic.
And we're going to. Oh, it was a fantastic
history.
Honestly, one of the better ones ever. I love how people sleep on the Bully Ray and act like he doesn't know what he's talking about. He had a hell of a heel run. Like that whole Bully Ray thing was actually good. Believe it or not, Aces and Eights wasn't a complete failure. Later on, it got watered down, but in the beginning, it was real good. And him being the surprise head of it when he was actually at the time positioning himself on Hulk Hogan's side was pretty phenomenal. It was a really good swerve, in my opinion. One of the best in wrestling history. But anyways, I digress. So here you go. You have a match where Dark State, which I'm not completely sold on. I think athletically they're talented, but I just don't like the gimmick because we've said it before. I'll say it a million times. Retribution 2.0 isn't really working. But to be fair, you're going to be in there against one of the greatest tag teams of all time, going into a match where you're going to take two of the most legendary tag teams of all time at Bound for Glory. I have a hard time believing the Hardys aren't leaving with all the belts. I think they are. I think all the belts are coming with the Hardys, which means we're going to have a giant double championship match at Bound for Glory. It was already, I understand they're not in their primes anymore, but I feel like these two teams, the Dudleys and the Hardys, are still going to give us one hell of a final match. And when you're going to have all the gold on the line, I think that speaks volumes. Your thoughts, Sammy?
Is there any way whatsoever that the Dudleys get involved in this match, do you think? Is it possible in any sort of way?
My fear if they get involved that's going to be the cop-out to not have the Hardys with all the belts.
Yeah.
Because remember, everybody's banned, so then there would be a DQ, and then there would be belt split. So I'm kind of hoping they don't. Yeah. Or I'm hoping if they do, it's a way where Dark State tries to get involved and the Dudleys cut off Dark State. So therefore the Ava goes, listen, yeah, everybody broke the rules, but the Dudleys cut them off. So title stand. Because I really think that if you're going to have that big of a match between two legendary tag teams, having all the belts on the line is what would make the most sense, in my opinion. Not to mention prestige-wise, the NXT tag titles have a pretty good prestigious history. But having the Hardys as champions really kind of ups that as well, in my opinion.
It'll be interesting to see how it plays out, because knowing that match is looming, it'd be hard to see the WWE not try and capitalize that and get the Dudleys involved.
Absolutely. I would get them involved somehow. But I just hope they don't do the screw job ending, because I would like to see a definitive winner. Because like I said, I think that the smart money is to have the NXT and TNA World Tag Team titles on the line on Sunday for Bound for Glory. Because it's a high-profile match. It's a super high-profile match. Even if some of the younger crowd are like, I don't get it. No, this is one of the most high-profile matches of all time, in my opinion. Let's change up the pace. So we have the two other matches we have are Survivor Series rules matches. I wish they were 5-on-5. Because that's classic Survivor Series rules, but that's being nitpicky. They are 4-on-4. Team NXT, Team TNA, Survivor Series rules, which means it's elimination style. So it's not one fall to a finish. It is whatever team eliminates the other team first. So let's start with the women's match. Representing Team NXT, we have the NXT Women's Champion, JC Jane, Jada Parker, the NXT Women's North American Champion, and the WWE Speed Women's Champion, Sol Ruca, and Lola Vice. And they will be taking on the TNA team led by the new TNA Knockouts Champion, Kalani Jordan, Jessie McKay, and Cassie Lee. And then, of course, Mara Sade will also be on the team. Interesting picks here. Kalani Jordan, of course, NXT performer, but is now your Knockouts Women's Champion. She decided, I want to represent Team TNA. Granted, the two captains of the teams are the two world champions. Makes sense. But what are your thoughts on the NXT versus TNA Women's Survivor Series match?
Are we overthinking this, and it's just going to be as simple as, we're going to see the WWE NXT team, kind of go over in this because of that factor, and we'll see a bit of a TNA screw job? No, I feel like that's...
I think it's going to be the other way around.
It sounds so simple, but if you execute it right, it is theater,
Right, but I think that there's a more interesting thing here. On the TNA side, the only question is Kalani Jordan, technically. But she could show that she is a team player, and that's maybe where the conquer. You have on the other side, Jada Parker and Sol Ruka are having a little bit of a feud here. You know, they just met at No Mercy, but even before then, they had a dust up when they were partners, you know, a little bit connected. And then you have Lola Vice, who was just screwed out of the NXT Women's Championship, having the team with JC Jane. So the women's NXT side, I feel like is not a cohesive unit.
True.
You know, it would have been, you know, and obviously JC Jane's probably upset because you saw her on TV. She thought Fatal Influence should just be represented in its whole, and they didn't. So I think that we're thinking that Kalani Jordan might turn on TNA. I think it's the opposite. I think Kalani, who got cheered when she won the TNA Knockouts title, I think she is going to actually step up and say, hey, I'm repping. I rep both, but I'm right now carrying the flag of TNA, and I'm going to do that. I think that she's kind of like that bridge that they kind of needed, if you will. And then on the other side, I think Team NXT is going to fall apart because I think we're going to see Sol Ruka and Jada Parker going to lead to something there. And then, of course, I don't think Lola Vice and JC Jane can get along. So still plenty of cinema, though, Sammy. Still, either way you go, you can still have some really good cinema moments. Speaking of really good cinema, we got a lot more on the men's side. So the men's Survivor Series tag match will be Team NXT. That would be your NXT champion, Ricky Saints, the TNA World Champion, Trick Williams, Javon Evans, and Miles Bourne. And they will be taking on the team of the number one contender for the TNA World title, Mike Santana, Mr. TNA himself, your Legends champion, Frankie Kazarian, Moose, and the X Division champion, Leon Slater. Lots of story here. Trick Willie, repping Team NXT as the TNA World Heavyweight Champion. Interesting, right? On the other end, we had the two champions as the team captains. On this end, Trick Williams. Now, granted, Santino Marella said it best. I can't trust you. Tricky Williams, your name is Tricky, so I cannot trust you. So I thought that was very telling. So he's on Team NXT. Can he get along with Ricky Saints, Miles Bourne, and, of course, Javon Evans? On the other end, because remember, Trick Williams and Javon Evans had quite the feud going on. The other three, I think, can get along just fine. Flip the page, though. Team TNA, you got Mike Santana and Leon Slater maybe on the same page. Frankie Kazarian's beating to the beat of his own drum, right? And then you have Moose, who's probably would have been more happy if the system was just taking on this total as a conglomerate instead of doing it this way, which maybe would have been a better salad team. But then again, Moose will be the biggest man in this match.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yes. See, I feel
by
like
quite some bit.
Yeah, so I feel like this match leans more into that NXT team kind of imploding a little bit, just everyone being on top of Trick and, you know, having Ricky Saints, big personality, Trick, big personality. And I feel like that unified idea of, listen, we might all hate each other here in TNA, but they got our belt. We got to go get it. I feel like that tells the you know.
So I'm with you. I can see how that's a good story. But also, I think the interesting story here could be the TNA implosion. Because maybe, you know, the other three, like when you get Javon, Miles, and Ricky together, they should work as a cohesive unit no matter what, right? Trick is the only outside, but maybe they rally around the fact that, okay, we might not like Trick, but we do have the TNA World Championship on this team. So maybe we rally around for one night only. We show camaraderie with Trick Williams. Whereas on the other side, you know, Kazarian thinks that he should be the world champion. Mike Santana is getting the shot. So there's a little bit of the back there. Moose is Moose. Like he is the franchise, the right? Well, think about it. He's the franchise, which would probably drive Kazarian nuts as well in a lot of ways. And then Leon Slater, you know, Leon Slater's Leon Slater. He's going to have a great match out there. We're going to get a little tease of him and Javon Evans coming up at Bound for Glory. So that's always a good sign. So, I mean, I can see it going either way. And once again, I like this, though. There's so much story and stuff built in. I think that if I was picking the teams, though, I would have had Obafemi and not Trick Williams. But I understand why they did it because it's a better story, right? Because if you had, because in my mind, we saw it once before in a match, and it was tremendous. Moose and Obafemi. But anytime I can get those two big bulls going after each other, I'm in. So I would have gone to that well just for that reason. But I get why they did it this way, because like you said, it leaves a little bit more. It leaves will Trick Williams kind of implode the NXT side, or will his being in the match period kind of help implode the TNA side? You know, maybe him and Mike Santana take each other out early because, you know, there's a lot of hate there, and then we have a 3-on-3. And in that case, it's which team can be more cohesive. And if that's the case, though, I think Team NXT has the upper hand there, because I think that there's a more cohesive unit between Miles, Javon, and Ricky than there will be between Kazarian Kazarian, Moose, and Leon. Just thoughts.
Trick is tricky.
Trick is tricky, but that's going to go down. I'm gonna enjoy tuning into that show. It's going to be destination television. It's the night before I leave for New York City, so I'm going to relax on my couch, and I'm going to enjoy NXT Showdown this upcoming Tuesday night in place of the normal NXT TV on the C-Dub. So with that, we are now exited out of there, and let's talk about a little bit of editorial stuff. It says it right there, stock up or down. And like I said before, we're not talking business per se. We will probably bring up some business.
Yeah.
But what we're talking about, it is Q4. This is the final quarter of the year. This is where legends are made, if you will. This is where in the business world, this is where financially you're trying to catch up and set yourself, not only catch up and finish strong with a big end of the year, but you're also trying to set yourself up for the next year. So wrestling is the same. And from a fan's perspective, that's what we're going at. Where are the two major companies in the US at coming into Q4? You know, we've talked about this before, but what do these companies have going on that's great and they need to step on it and keep that pedal down? And what is the things that they need to kind of work at to finish out 2025 strong and enter 2026 stronger than ever? And I want to start, believe it or not, with World Wrestling Entertainment, because I think that a lot of what I'm going to talk about, and I think a lot of what you're going to talk about with AEW, is going to be kind of rebuttals to what is happening in WWE to begin with, because they're in an interesting challenger brand mode again, if they can grab the reins. I think that's going to be what we talk about there. So let's start with WWE. And it's good to note that we've been talking business-wise. WWE's business has been good, like the money-wise. So much, in fact, that they keep doubling and tripling and quadrupling down. They're making it more expensive. And we keep saying, when are they going to price everybody out? Between having to have Netflix, here in the States, you have to have Netflix, the Peacock, and ESPN Direct, costing you quite a bit of money to make sure you're watching all the WWE products. And that's a challenge. We're spending more money now.
Yeah, along with some sort of a way to watch the CW network as well. And
right.
And SmackDown.
Well, you can watch SmackDown on the Peacock. That comes on the Peacock.
Yes.
So you can watch that on the Peacock. You can't watch it live on the Peacock, but you can watch it right after. I do believe the next day it's up. Yeah. So that solves that problem. C-Dub is if you have an antenna, which is kind of sounds weird for some of us older folks, though, but you can still get an antenna. You can get that as it's a basic cable channel, technically. So I'm not going to argue the CW point of view, but like just those three, you take wrestling fans who are used to a long time on the network and then the Peacock of paying $10 a month, if that, and now you're asking them to now. I know Peacock went up in price. Mm-hmm. I think it's like $13 now. And then you have ESPN Direct, unless it's tied in with your cable. And even if it is tied in one of your cable providers, it was done so quickly that you're still paying for it at this point at $30 price point. And then you have Netflix, which depending upon which tier you're on, that's $10 or more, right? Yeah. So as a wrestling fan on a low end of the scale, you are paying about $54 a month for WWE programming. That's just off the top of my head. That's the low end, right? Now it makes those AEW pay-per-views now that are at $40 seem pretty reasonable, if you ask me. So we've been talking about that. You're kind of pricing people out, and the problem is you are dropping the ball on the PLEs. It's been a long time since we've been like, oh, WWE killed a PLE. Matter of fact, it's been a little while since we've been like, man, that Raw or SmackDown was must-see in its entirety TV. And I think the real showing part and showing that we're going here, and I wanted to segue this to you because we were talking about it off air, is WWE on Netflix came out. Lowest rating. We were making a joke last week about, hey, we're doing a pre-recorded now because there's some seats on the bus at Nerd Initiative changing over time. It frees me up on Thursdays to make sure I can take care of new movie releases. And, you know, we will float the idea of maybe changing a night or whatever. And we made the joke of, oh, maybe we should switch to Mondays because it seems like people aren't going to watch Raw. Fast forward, that past week was the lowest rated. And there's caveats to that, right, Sammy?
There is some caveats to that. So, you know, obviously we're in Q4, we're into fall. So with there, you know, WWE is doing that titanic battle up against Monday Night Football. However, the numbers that are put out by Netflix, that are surprising that they put these numbers out, but they do. The numbers are based on an entire international audience. Not everyone in the world's watching Monday Night Football. I know football, they claim to be the biggest sport in the world. They're not, you know, but it is one of the biggest. But yeah, not everyone's watching it, number one. And the numbers take place over the course of an entire week. So it cracked a little over 2 million over the course of an entire week.
That's Monday to Sunday.
Yeah. So
2 million.
I mean, I don't know how many people are watching Monday Night Raw from last week, you know, after SmackDown's already aired. You know what I mean? Like, you kind of have a short window of time. And that's one of the things with the way the wrestling, you know, landscape is right now, with Monday Night Raw, Tuesday NXT, Wednesday AEW, Thursday TNA, Friday SmackDown, Saturday Collision. Like, you have a short window to watch this show and actually really consume it and care about it. If you missed it on Monday, if you don't watch it before Friday, there's no point. There's just no point. So those ratings, you know, those numbers that come out for Netflix, they are shocking because you're talking about the whole world. The whole world has access to this, and not really watching it. And I understand why, because I was watching it and I'm like, this is a slog.
I also want to point out that nobody's watching it in week 2. Because by then, the next episode's already out. What most people are doing now is, like we just said, the show has become stale to the point that you can just watch the highlights on YouTube.
Yep.
Listen, if I have things going on, that's what I do. I don't watch the whole show. I just go on to X, I go on to you know, Facebook, wherever. I see what everybody's talking about, if there's something they're talking about, and then I go on to YouTube and I watch the clip. i.e. Roman Reigns returned. I found out Roman Reigns returned. I went on over. I didn't even watch the full match. I just watched the clip that WWE put out where it's the end of the match and we got Bronson and Braun beating down the Usos, and then here comes our tribal chief.
Yeah, they've kind of backed themselves a bit into a little bit of a pickle of a corner here, because we know social media numbers. Fun fact, we're on YouTube. We know social media numbers because we deal with them as well. You know, WWE or any enterprise can make a lot of money on their own from putting content on social media, including YouTube. So, and we've seen WWE promote those numbers. This is the most viewed video ever. This got 100 million views in overnight and whatever. They do this all the time because, again, it's money directly to them. But you need to base that product somewhere, and you need to have those amazing moments somewhere. And it's not going to happen on YouTube. It's going to happen on Netflix. It's going to happen on Peacock. It's going to happen on ESPN. But it's not.
But here's the other caveat to that. And I understand this is only 1 week. And I understand the numbers have been kind of down, but it's only 1 week we're talking about here. Yeah. But here's, if the ratings on the wall, WWE, yeah, you can double and triple dip. And that's what they're doing right now. We've said that. They're double, triple, you know, deal with Netflix, deal with ESPN, deal with Peacock, they're just double and triple dipping. That's all they're doing, which is fine. And we brought up last week that this whole maybe WBD being sold to Paramount and what that could mean for AEW. Well, here's a catch, Sammy. And once again, this is more out of Q4. This is a little more long term, but it might as well just bring it up now. If you keep doing all those dipping and you're carrying more because you're making a little bit of a kickback from YouTube and all that happy jazz, what happens? Your deal with Netflix is for 5 years. Netflix can terminate the deal after 3. Also, Netflix can extend the deal to 10. And it's a big deal. It's a lot of money. But if you start really triple dipping and the revenue isn't there for Netflix, if you price yourself out, if you're pissing the fans off, if the fans aren't tuning in, why is Netflix going to continue to pay you the billions of dollars when they can opt out? That was the one mistake that TKO made. As smart as their business officers were, they gave Netflix too much power because they were chasing that international. That was what it was.
Yes.
And the problem is they gave Netflix too much power. Netflix can opt out in year 3. So if this number stands, if it's only 2 million, and Netflix thinks that they can make more money by spending less money on original content or by luring in other sports, that's what Netflix is doing, is trying to lure in more live sports. What if Netflix in the next 3 years gets the contract of Monday Night Football? You ever think about that? Do you think that's out of the realm of possibility? Because it's not. The rights come up, I think it's every 2 or 3 years on the NFL stuff anyways. Yeah. So therefore, Netflix could be making a push to get NFL football. This could be their tester for it. The NFL football is going to get you more than 2 million views on a Monday.
Yeah.
What do you think happens?
I believe that the game that was going up against that Monday Night Raw that we're specifically speaking about was 28.
The Jets and the Dolphins.
Yeah.
And it was the Jets and the Dolphins. It was a double header, by the way, because the other game was the Bengals and I can't even remember who.
Bengals and the whatever else, but
yeah. The Jets and Dolphins.
So to reel this back into the product, though, so now let's talk about the slate of WWE and where they're at with some of these potential, challenges coming their way with the product being very soft right now. So if you look at the main event, the main roster up and down, John Cena's TikTok clock is coming to an end. The Rock, call him the Rock favor, that's kind of coming to an end. He may win an Oscar. He's going to be very much Hollywood.
He's back in the seat in Hollywood. Yeah, absolutely, with the Smashing Machine.
Roman Reigns, is he still going to be around at this point or not? We don't really know. He's talked about Hollywood. He's talked about other things. He's got his health concerns as well. I mean, he's still going to be a big player.
He's part-time. He's going to be there, but he's part-time. He's not a full-time player anymore. He will never. I will put it this way: Roman will never be a full-time player ever again. You're not going to be able to rely on him week to week.
No, but you know what I mean. In 3 years, he could very well be in the same position The Rock was when he was that age, where it's like Hollywood's calling. I gotta go.
But even if he's not, you're going to not see him as much regardless. I will promise you will never see Roman Reigns every week on television ever again in his wrestling career.
So there's that. CM Punk in 3 to 5 years will probably be retired.
Yeah.
AJ Styles, Randy Orton. I mean, Randy Orton says he's going to keep going for forever, but as you get older,
realistically, AJ's finishing up. We know AJ's finishing up. He's already said that.
Yep. I mean, Seth Rollins can go out there and keep doing the same character he's been doing now for the past couple of years, I guess.
It's stale, but I would say Rollins still has a decade if he chooses.
Yeah.
He's still in that zone where he'd probably have a decade left. But once again, that's irrelevant. But yeah, you know what I mean?
So when you start looking at that and then you start looking at the other end of the roster, you can kind of, I don't want to go back and rewrite history and talk about things, but when NXT was rebranded and changed after everything that they went through, going up against AEW and everything, you can kind of starting to see why, because at that time, NXT was so hot and it was so popular and everything. But what happened to all that talent? Where did they elevate to? Are they all contending for the Intercontinental title, the U.S. Championship, the Tag Team Championships? Are they getting ready to elevate themselves into that top end of WWE? No, they're nowhere to be found. Adam Cole's not even currently in wrestling anymore, and I hope one day he can get back into it, but he's not even working for that company anymore either. There's a couple other guys. There's one guy, he's completely out of wrestling, and he's not going to be welcome back ever again, it seems like, which is fine. and a lot of other people that were red hot during that time period. I don't know where they are.
Right. I will say this, though. We're talking Q4. That's long term, right? But that's long term. You can still, there's time to build stars for the future. I'm not even going to sweat that in Q4. But once again, what I'm sweating in Q4 and where I think you're going with it, as it relates to right now, talking Q4 and going into 2026, is that they are showing no willingness to make the product less stale. Right. Every chance they get, they're reminding us that TKO is only interested in dollars and cents and how much profit they can put in their pockets. They're only worried about how much money comes into the coffers and not what the product that's going out. If they were worried, we wouldn't get the lackluster PLEs. For crying out loud, their partner in ESPN criticized in a review, like we talked about, and everybody else has talked about, how bad, or sorry, not bad, mediocre, because it was an average score, how mediocre the first PLE WrestlePalooza was on ESPN. You are supposed to blow people away for two reasons. There was rumor that WrestlePalooza was kind of to be like, okay, we're going to try to make this a big event, so that way when we do stupid things like take WrestleMania to Saudi Arabia and piss off most of our audience, then we have a fallback on. But so that was the first thing. And the second thing is, this is your first night on ESPN. They're paying you billions of dollars. This is a big deal. You're making your fans pay more money. And then you went out there and you half-assed the show. Yeah. You put on the most mediocre show possible that included commercial breaks that didn't even have commercials. Yep. And I know I'm ragging on it again, but this is the same stuff. And the pacing was terrible. We're just doing stupid things that have nothing to do with storytelling, nothing to do with the pacing of the show, that just make the crowd go, why am I watching?
Well, and you know, WWE's also falling into this trap that we criticize AEW for, so I have to call it down the middle. WWE keeps running the same places. I understand these places are paying them a lot of money, but you keep running these same places. You have to move the product around because it plagued AEW. It's plaguing WWE too. Not everyone's going to travel to Indianapolis. Not everyone's going to travel to Saudi Arabia.
Well, even better. Think about this. You just hit the nail on the head. It's not even the domestic sites that I'm worried about, because they're making these big deals. That's why they keep going back to Vegas and back to Indianapolis and back to, they're making all these deals, and that's why they keep going back, which once again, yeah, you're killing the town. You're killing the town. You're absolutely right. But here's the thing. They've now killed the international market, I think. Because you know why those crowds were showing up in France last year and in parts of England last year and in Australia? You want to know why they're going wild? Because WWE doesn't go there often. But now we're going back all the time. Think about the Saudi shows. The Saudi shows on paper have gotten better because they're putting on better matches and they're not treating them like house shows. Okay, so I'll say that. However, listen to the crowds before at the Saudi shows. They're still full, but they're not as loud as they once were, because the crowd just is like, oh, this is second hat. We see it 3 times a year.
Not as special.
Who cares?
It's not as unique.
Not as special. It's not the draw. And that is the problem. They're not only just killing domestic towns, they're killing the international market. And it's not killing it for AEW, because we just saw that. Scotiabank Arena was pretty full in Toronto for AEW's last pay-per-view. When they went to England, pretty full as well. Well, why? Because they only go over once a year.
Well, and that's the thing. And we did see that drop off for AEW when they ran back years.
Well, Wembley,
there was a massive drop off because it's not as exclusive anymore.
Right.
Which I get that you want to go, you know, you're going to get a big crowd, but again, you kill the town. It's AEW.
Right.
Killed
Wembley
Chicago.
was definitely killed. Well, AEW killed Chicago. AEW killed Vegas. Yep. So let's call it like it is. They just killed all the towns that they run all the time. You know, and I had said years ago what they could be doing. And I understand. I'm going to serve myself because I live in Binghamton, New York. It's a small city in upstate New York. Okay. Or the southern tier of New York for the people in New York who are picky about where you say you're from in New York. Okay. So anyways, it's a small city. We have an arena. If AEW ran Dynamite at our arena, which seats for a wrestling show, I do believe between 6,000 and 7,000, they would sell the building out and it would be loud because there are a lot of wrestling fans in this town, a lot of old WWE fans, but they would support things. We supported ECW when it came to this area. We supported WCW when it came to this area. We would support AEW because we're starved for business, because WWE comes here maybe one house show a year. Now it's maybe every 2 years they come in here with a house show.
Really
now that they
house shows anymore,
because they don't run house shows anymore. They don't bring TV here. So could you imagine? AEW has all these, and this is not just Binghamton. It's a lot of markets. AEW could run mid-size arenas, fill them up with people who are starved for content, starved for wrestling, not kill the towns, and they would make a killing. Let's start there with AEW, because I'm done ranting about WWE, because I don't think that there's an upside.
But WWE could do that as well. I mean, the both.
But they're not going to.
No, they're not going to. But both companies could learn that lesson as well. Of like, yes, we do need to go to these places. We cannot continuously keep going to these places. But if we do a loop, and then the next year we do the loop in reverse, that way, say in January we run Binghamton, and then next year in December, the following year, so you get a whole huge gap, it would work. But WWE has shown no interest in that. They stopped doing house shows, which, again, a lot of these decisions do make sense, and they did make sense. The problem has consistently been with WWE, we've seen in 2025, is the product is just not very good.
Right. Like I said, that's not going to change. That's why I'm saying I will start with AEW by saying running towns like where I'm from in Binghamton, running the mid-size arenas instead of just instead of just big cities and then small venues in big cities. Doing that could really energize. What the big word for AEW is for me is energize the fans that are feeling like WWE is just leaving them out and left behind. You need to not go after just the sickos. And I'm not even talking casual fans. You need to go after people who are disillusioned with WWE. You know how you do that? Go into places like Binghamton, New York, where I'm from. Trust me, there's towns all over this country.
There's plenty of them all over the place.
Where these arenas used to get Monday Night Raws and everything else, because our arena used to get Monday Night Raws. We used to get like 2 Monday Night Raws a year, right? Now we don't get any of that. You bring a Dynamite in once a year, and you're going to embolden that crowd to cheer for your brand. And that is what AEW needs to do. The reason their stock is down is they need to take advantage of the disillusionment. When they first kicked off, when AEW was first launched, WWE was at a real low point. And AEW, as the challenger brand, took advantage of that and made a lot of noise.
Yep.
But somewhere along the line, Tony Khan started booking for Tony Khan. And then WWE caught fire with the ousting of VKM and Triple H's ascent originally before TKO eventually took over. And, even when they first took over, it was still business as usual. Well, now, like we just talked about, WWE is going to be good financially for right now, but eventually that's going to drop because eventually they're going to price people out. Just saw the tickets prices for John Cena's last match, by the way, in Washington, D.C., and let's just say floor seating is going to cost you thousands of dollars to a Saturday night's main event. Okay. That should tell you something. Okay. They're pricing people out. They're pricing you out with all the services you have to have. And now they're going to be pricing you out with the live gate, which they've already been doing and continue to do. We talked about WrestleMania ticket sales, right? Or ticket prices, I should say.
Ticket prices.
So they're pricing people out. And if the product continues to stay sale, guess what? Fans, you'll still get people who are going to go, right?
People are going to go.
A lot of fans are going to stop. You're not going to have full houses because you're going to price them out. And they're going to be like, well, why do I want to pay $800 to sit in the nosebleeds when the show is going to be mid at best, right? So AEW needs to really go out there. And if they want to up their stock, they can start here at the end of 2025 and continue through 2026 like we begged and pleaded last week for. And I'm going to continue that right now by going, okay, let's start going into these disillusioned areas that WWE used to service all the time. And now let's bring them the product. Now let's get that behind us. Now also, let's give them the solid in-ring card we do. We've always said AEW, when it comes between the ropes, is going to be the best wrestling show you can watch. Like, technically in the ring, you are going to be entertained by the wrestling. Where you're dropping it is building characters and stories that we give a damn about. I'm not saying they don't build anybody, because they do. Will Ospreay is over as hell. I understand he's injured right now. He's over as hell. Swerve Strickland, over as hell. You know what I mean? MJF, one of your top heels or baby faces, depending upon his run, because he's over as hell. Orange Cassidy over as hell, Darby Allin. So they can build stars. And we can see that they can build stories because Hangman and Swerve had a hell of a story that you can always go back to. I don't think that story is ever going to be bad. However, we need that consistently up and down the card.
Right.
We need to know why we give a damn about everybody on the card. We can't just go, hey, I don't know what to do with them. Throw them in the Don Callis family.
Well, and that's been, I mean, we've talked now for months, years at this point about AEW and the things that they could really do to help revitalize the product. And number one is roster construction. It's still too big. Tony Khan just loves to buy toys and put them on the shelves, but it doesn't service anyone. That's number one. Number two is you need a proper booker. Tony Khan, I'm sorry. You're welcome to help and be the VKM, the final decision maker, but you should not be the one pitching the ideas. You should not be the one steering that. I'm sorry. You don't have the skills strong enough to do it. Could you learn them? Maybe over the course of years. But there's so many talented people out there in the wrestling industry and people that work at AEW and probably people you could poach from WWE. Do it. You got the money. Do it.
You had William Regal, one of the greatest minds in pro wrestling, for an extended period of time, did nothing with him. That's why he went back to WWE. It wasn't because his son was signing with WWE that he went back. No, it was because he wasn't really being used. He was having fun on TV because he got to hang out with his friends, like the kids that he respected, and John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli and Bryan Danielson, because he has a hand in all of their training and so that was a real camaraderie. But you should have been using him for his wrestling mind. Why do you think he sits to the right of Triple H? Because he's got one of the best wrestling minds in the entire world, and you piss that away.
It's funny because I remember stories when Paul Heyman was out of wrestling. This is years ago when he was out. And they wanted to bring him back and everything, right? And he didn't want anything to do. He's just like, I just want to be a character on screen. I just want to be a character on screen. Look how quickly that changed. Look how quickly that changed. And it's the same thing with William Regal. You had him there. And did you bring him in to be a talent and just expect him to kind of just be this guru behind the scenes helping people? Sure. But it's William Regal. It's William Regal. Come on. He's the head.
You had Arn Anderson there. You had Arn Anderson there. You have Dean Malenko still there, from what I know.
Block Anderson.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? If you think about it, they've had some talented minds.
Had Jake the Snake there. I think he's still in the payroll.
One of the greatest promos of all time.
Ding!
Jake the Snake, one of the greatest promos of all time. And you struggle with promos. You mean you can't have Jake the Snake teach these kids some promos?
Right, and I totally understand that not all these people are going to be good at crafting an overall wrestling show. Sometimes the best players can't always work as a coach. They can't always work as a manager and things like that. I totally get that, but there's just too many people there that you're going to tell me one of them hasn't stood out and shined above. Even some of the talent, someone like Bryan Danielson and Chris Jericho. You had CM Punk there for a while. You're going to tell me one of those guys didn't just start to stand out above the rest? It's Samoa Joe. Come on.
Well, you have Samoa Joe.
Wealth of knowledge.
I'm glad you said CM Punk. What we understand, I understand. Instantly you say CM Punk and AEW, we're going to think about Brawl Out. We're going to think about what happened with him and Jack Perry. Here's the thing, though. Prior to all of that, everybody was talking about how he was working with the talent. He was working with Jade Cargill. He was working with Ricky Saints. He was working with all these young, talented kids that wanted to better themselves. And he had an open door policy. All of them were coming. Before he had his falling out with Jack Perry, believe it or not, Jack Perry was singing his praises. If you remember, CM Punk, even in one of his infamous interviews, said, how do you not know what the hell to do with a Jack Perry? You know what I mean? He was defending Jack Perry, right? Until they had their falling out. The point of the matter is he was actually helping out people in the back, much like he does in WWE now, right? Did he have a little more of a Fowler attitude? Probably, but that was directed towards your EVPs. That was directed towards the people who are poking the bear, as we all know. But guess who the draw was? I love the Young Bucks. I'm a big fan, have been. I mean, sometimes I like to joke and say about it's a Young Bucks match, but I love the Young Bucks. I think they're one of the greatest tag teams of all time. I love Kenny Omega. I'm a huge Kenny Omega mark, especially, I fell in love with Kenny Omega like most people when he was in Japan. And I'm still a huge Kenny Omega mark. However, at the end of the day, Sammy, none of those guys draw like CM Punk.
Nope.
I'm sorry. When it talk about business,
Not even
none of them draw.
Yeah.
Like, it's hard to draw. And that's not saying anything because there's a lot of guys in WWE that don't draw. It's like CM Punk. As much as Seth Rollins would like to believe he's a bigger draw than CM Punk, he's not.
No.
I think there's only
especially playing the same character he's played for multiple years now.
Right. I think that in WWE right now, the only people who are a bigger draw, box office wise, than CM Punk are Roman Reigns and John Cena.
Yeah. And
Think
one
about
of those,
that.
And one of those players is about to come off the table.
Right. And the other player is a part-time guy.
Yeah.
Right. Who he deserves it.
Who has a start, the beginning bubblings of a feud with the other one, and that would just print so much money.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. But that's my point. My point is that Roman Reigns is the only, draw bigger than CM Punk in WWE. But you know what? Giving them credit, they understand that. Think about it. They understand it. Why do you think he's paired with Seth Rollins? Not because Seth Rollins is terrible. He's a great wrestler. He's a great worker. However, he makes more money with CM Punk.
Yep.
And it's not because Rollins is uplifting Punk. It's the other way around. Whereas if you did, and like you said, if you put Roman against Punk, oh my God, the box office draw that is. But that's what AEW has to find. AEW can get there. We keep drawing on it. And that's my big takeaway in Q4. You need to start attacking when you can, because you need to become the challenger brand again, not the competitor. You're not at the competitor stage, but you are at the challenger brand stage. And you know how you do that? You don't go out there and do silly things. You go out there and you go, oh, okay, your show is on the decline. Why is it on the decline? Oh, you're not going as many places to support. We're going to go to those territories. We're going to give disillusioned star fans content. Boom. Now we're taking those fans. Now what are we going to do? Oh, we're going to start taking characters that people care about, putting them in storylines that people will care about. And not only will we have great matches because we'll get the payoff in the ring, but we're going to get people invested.
Yeah.
As much as I love Eddie Kingston to me is AEW's Mick Foley. And hear me out. Look at, and this is all respect. I love Eddie Kingston. I want to preface it that. But look at Eddie Kingston. Much like myself, he ain't a guy that you are going to think is going to be a star or the heart and soul of anything. Just like Mick Foley, let's be honest, and Mick Foley said it himself, looked like a freak. But he captured the hearts of everybody. And that's what Eddie Kingston does. To an extent, I'm not saying to that same, but he could.
Well,
if you used him in the right way, he could.
Well, I just wonder if that title might go more towards a Darby Allin.
Yes and no, because Darby Allin to me is more of a Jeff Hardy with less problems, like not as problematic. Although he is problematic in other ways because he just decides he doesn't want to do TV and wants to go climb Mount Everest and take 4 or 5 months off of television, which is a problem when you're one of the stars of the TV show. That is a problem. But at least it's not I got arrested for some stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But I think he's more of that charismatic enigma like a Jeff Hardy, which is good. You need that.
So, I mean, if we're talking if for AEW to really ramp up 2025, they have 3 months left, and we know AEW historically they don't really take the foot off the gas during the Christmas season as much as the WWE does. They tend to kind of power through it, and they may not be doing their top tier stuff, but the WWE definitely takes the foot off the gas pedal at the end of the year there, which is fine.
Mm-hmm.
Different strokes for different folks.
Here's what it is.
Yeah, so for AEW, I mean, a real strong focus on story development is really what all they could really do in 25, because they already probably have their travel schedule lined up. They already have their TV and their pay-per-views all lined up. So starting off for 2026, definitely looking at their travel schedule, going to some of those other towns, but the focus on the storytelling continues to plague AEW, and it needs to be the focus. But what about WWE? I mean, what can they do that would really start to turn things around? I mean, I guess getting some more definitive... The storytelling has been lackluster for champions. We know that. So to get Cody into a real strong feud would really help.
What WWE needs to do...
That's a good place to start.
WWE needs to do what they did when they turned the tables about 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago. And I'm not saying they need to find the bloodline storyline or something like that, because that's what really sparked it. But what they were doing at the same time that the bloodline was going on is they were involving a lot of other people. The bloodline storyline, why it was so successful, wasn't just because, you had all of, the Anoa'i family involved. It was because you were involving other characters. Kevin Owens was involved. Drew McIntyre came to prominence there. Bobby Lashley had some run-ins with the group, but all the things that spurned off made people want to watch them. So then when Drew McIntyre was no longer feuding with the bloodline and he went on and feuded with Sheamus or whoever the hell he was feuding with, Gunther, it elevated that story as well. So what they were doing well is what kind of they did in the Attitude Era. They were making stories and making people want to watch up and down the card. Think about it. We were watching for the main event and for Cody finishing the story in the bloodline, but you were also tuning in when we were having the trio of Sheamus, Gunther, and Drew McIntyre beating the piss out of each other. You were tuning in for the drama between Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn. And I understand that was tied to the bloodline, but it was also kind of askew from the bloodline because it goes deeper than that. But you were tuning in for that and getting behind that. You were tuning in for things like, God rest his soul, Bray Wyatt and Randy Orton and what they were doing, and then later on when Bray returned. So you were tuning into the side characters. So up and down the card, they were making people on the undercard feel important. That's what WWE has to do. It seems like now that WWE doesn't give a damn about building anything. They care about their top star, kind of. They won't put him in a top feud, but you know what? They will put Cody Rhodes front and center, the quarterback. Okay, cool. You need to put him in a feud that we actually believe in instead of the flavor of the month that we know he's going to defeat and move on. You know what I mean? However, they haven't shown they can do that. So you're right to that point. But they also need to figure out how on that undercard you can start elevating some of those other characters so they can start then mingling in, which would make the card complete. When you tune into Monday Night Raw, if you really want to tune in at the beginning of the show to see the opening promo, which leads into a match usually, and then at the end of the show to see whatever happens at the end of the night. That's it. Everything in between doesn't matter because who the hell cares? It's all a bunch of garbage. Okay? That's all it is. Same with SmackDown. Now NXT on the other hand. WWE, there you go. WWE, we can sum it up this. Be more like NXT. What I mean by that is, think about it. We just talked about their feud with TNA, but when we were talking about No Mercy, there was a lot of undercard stuff there. Tavion Heights against Ethan Page. Who would have thought that was going to be such a captivating match? But there was a story behind it. We understood. And get this, it's not going to be a long feud. We know it's not going to continue on, which is fine. But guess what? They made everybody care about Tavion Heights to get him into a position to take on Ethan Page. Let's look at a little longer of a feud that people care about. Jordan Grace versus Blake Monroe. Ooh, that's been spicy, right? Do I think that feud's over? No, I think they got another match in there. Honestly, I don't think that was the blow off. But guess what? You've really got people, and there's no title on the line. Think about it. There's no title on the line. There's no title shot on the line. Let's fast forward to the women's champion, JC Jane, the most unlikely champion, but somehow is putting on captivating matches. And as she conquers everybody's, up and comers and proving once again that, the person we thought was just going to hand the belt over to Jordan Grace didn't hand the belt over to Jordan Grace. Right? It's intriguing. And then you look at Javon Evans making a name for himself. Josh Briggs. Him and Josh Briggs went out there. 2 undercard guys. I know Javon Evans is a little more popular, but Josh Briggs, stock elevated. Let's see what they do with him next, because they're going to do something. Trick Williams is on the next level because of how they built him up. Oba Femi is about to be on the main roster. I don't know what the hell they're going to do with him because they showed that they can't handle anybody. But the reason why is because he was such a dominant force. I know what I would do with Oba Femi. You want to know what I would do with Oba Femi? I'll tell you right now, because it won't be Q4. What I would do with Oba Femi is, if you want to build up Brock Lesnar for some dumb reason, is build him up for a little bit so Oba Femi can squash him. And I mean squash him. You know why? Because Brock is going to be done. There's no more money coming out of Brock. There's a lot of controversy, but there's no more money coming out of Brock. I promise you that much. But you know what you could do is, if you squash him to Oba Femi, and now Oba Femi's the next big thing. He's the next big monster. He's the next big thing that you can ride the back on. Just jump on that big muscular back and ride that shit to the moon. Am I wrong?
No.
That's how you deal with an Obafemi. But they probably won't because they don't care. They only care about the bottom line is the money. And then that's why we can sit here and say what they should do all day long. But until they step back, and we know that they're not, because Mr. Shapiro, CEO of TKO, said that they only care about the bottom line. Hell, like we said before, somehow they made Vince McMahon look like a face for a minute. Like that's incredible. When you can have VKM look like he's a face. He made a face turn.
You know, look, we got 3 months left on the year. WWE's really only got 2.5 because, again, they start to shut down towards the end of the year and give these guys a break. And, again, nothing wrong with that. That's good.
Yeah,
you know, obviously we're going to wrap up John Cena and his career. And let's be honest. It hasn't been the most spectacular run. It's been up and down. But imagine this year without it. Oh, boy, would it be a disaster. And it didn't get in the way of anything either. Did it get a little weird and messy or whatever? But just imagine this year without it and everything else that we got. Oh, boy. So you need to start filling that gap. And obviously you need to fill that gap with more stories. So that's number one, is obviously WWE has to focus on storytelling. That's their overall number one thing. And the story you need to start with the most, I would say, is Cody Rhodes having a true feud. A true feud. And hopefully we'll get that with Randy Orton. It sounds like where they're going, but here my number two thing that WWE should really focus on is they need to stop with these tweener heels. Seth Rollins needs to be the bad guy right now. Someone needs to step up and be the bad guy, because during the reign of the Bloodline, Roman Reigns was the bad guy, and the crowd booed. Mostly because he wasn't there and this and that, so they made it work, but the crowd booed. Eventually, as time went on, yes, you start to cheer because, again, Roman Reigns. And
that's where you got to turn. Well, that's where you got to turn him face eventually, yeah. But
right,
you have to wait till that. Yeah.
But right now, who are you definitively booing in WWE?
Nobody.
And that's a problem. It's really becoming a problem. You have Seth Rollins come out there and the crowd is just cheering.
Oh, sorry, Logan Paul.
You got one. You got one. You always got one. So to me, that's number two. You need to definitively make some of these guys the bad guys. You have to. You can't keep doing, and not everyone can be a tweener. Someone just needs to be a jerk just because. And then my number three thing that WWE should really focus on from a product standpoint is some of these storylines that have been going on for a long time. The Judgment Day, it's time. It's time to wrap these things up and set these guys on other courses. And if you look at the women's division, who has been all over the place really with injuries, it's still kind of thriving.
Well, so, look at to your point for the Judgment Day.
Stephanie Vaquer, who was on NXT earlier this year. Now she's the women's champion. Tiffy time. NXT, last year?
Kind of becoming stale, but she's kind of getting stale.
Agreed. But again, here's some of your younger talent that you're actually putting in positions to do things with. So if you're not, and you got an Obafemi, you got to do something with him. So Dom's got that IC title. Maybe it's an Obafemi. I mean, you got to move these guys and put them in positions to do something, number one. But even if you're not going to go that route because WWE has struggled with it, fine. But something like that Judgment Day storyline, it's time. It's overdue. I understand you're probably waiting for Liv Morgan to come back or whatever, but
the problem is you jumped the shark. What I just said about Tiffany Stratton, the reason Tiffany Stratton is stale is not because of Tiffany Stratton. It's because you've left her at the belt on her, and once again, they don't have any challengers. It's just like Cody Rhodes. They're not booking a real feud that any of us can get behind. And that's what makes people stale. But with the Judgment Day, you've jumped the shark so far that you went from having one of the best heels in the business in Dominic Mysterio that he's now one of the most over faces. But here's the kicker. You can't even turn Finn Balor heel because now, especially after the NXT homecoming, everybody wants to go back to Finn Balor being a face. So now you have two sides of the same coin. We want a Dominic Mysterio face run and a Finn Balor face run. So now if you flip the script, neither of them could be in the heel. Neither of them. Right. So now you've waited so long that you've thrown away what was the reasonable ending. So you should just do away with it because you can make more money right now off of a Dom face and a Finn Balor face run than you're going to make off of whatever the hell they're doing with Judgment Day currently.
It's funny. The Batman, the Dark Knight Returns, or the Dark Knight quote is, you die a hero, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. At WWE, you live long enough to see yourself become the face.
It's true. It's the opposite. It's literally the opposite. But here's the other thing, like you were like, I want to.
You live long enough to become one.
Yeah, I want to touch on one more thing before we wrap up that you said. I think that where they're also at and where they're kind of failing a lot is that they're not moving people up the card. They're not, once again, going back to what I said, they're not creating new stars. They're just relying on old hat. And even when they move them up per se to take on a champion, it's for one shot and it's over. And we know it's going to be over. So it's a throwaway match. Syndrome. So you're not getting behind these people anymore, because why get behind LA Knight anymore? Because we know I ain't going to do nothing with them. You know what you could do? You want to you talk about, and this is where I want to come in. This is where I'm joining it in. You want to go in LA Knight heel run, go. Yeah. Great as a heel, and now you could actually get some mileage. Seth Rollins, somebody needs to set him down and go, hey, you're the heel. We're changing your music. What? Well, I read I can't remember who it was. I wish I could. So if you hear this, and I'm giving credit to somebody, I can't remember. I was reading an article. I wish I would have remembered the name. And they were pointing out the fact that you have Seth Rollins go out there and the whole crowd sings his music, but then they erupt for CM Punk. And then they erupt for Roman Reigns. And then they erupt for Cody Rhodes or whoever else, right? So it's taking away from your heel look because you're getting that song. And then you're still not as popular as the guy that's coming out after you. So they just want to sing your damn music. Take the music away. Take it off the table. But no, nobody's sitting them down and doing that. And I'm sorry, Seth Rollins should be the first to say that needs to go. But I'm telling you right now, the one detraction I will take from Seth Rollins, as much as he likes to point out that he's a team player in Team WWE, is he loves that he's getting the damn attention. He loves the building singing his music. Well, eat it up, kid, because you shouldn't be. I criticized Chris Jericho for a long time for playing Judas when he was a damn heel, because it did this same thing and it really backfired in a big way. And old Chris Jericho would have never done that. Prime Chris Jericho, think about it, didn't even sell merch when he was a heel because he didn't want anybody cheering him. That's what Seth Rollins needs to take away. You want to be the big dog, That's what below the surface, I think Seth Rollins looks at himself as the franchise. In a lot of ways, he is, right? He's the team player, the franchise. However, he's not the main draw and never has been. And I think somewhere deep down, even though he has a friendship with Roman Reigns, I think that he deep down is jealous. And he kind of lets it out in interviews, when he's being candid, that he's jealous that he's not Roman Reigns, that he's not. I used to make the joke that Jon Moxley now might be the third member of the Shield, but I don't think so. I think the real third member has always been Seth Rollins, because Jon Moxley went on to AEW and became the franchise of that company. Roman Reigns is definitely the franchise in the top dog and big draw in WWE. And Seth Rollins is little brother, as CM Punk likes to call him. And that's why he was mad when CM Punk came back, because now he didn't just have to overcome Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes. Now he's fourth fiddle, because now he's also behind CM Punk. And so that kind of irks him. And that's why he clings to that song at the end of the day. I could be wrong. If he wants to prove me wrong, he can always comment on it. But I think that's why, because at least he can go, well, look at, like he says in the ring to Punk, because a lot of that stuff between the two of them is real jabs back and forth for a lot of it. So he'd always say to him, you're singing my music. And then what would CM Punk instantly retort? Yeah, but they chant my name.
Yeah.
It
seems like this visionary group is not really working as we kind of hoped it would,
because they're not elevating anybody.
It's not, and I don't expect instant results on it, but go back and really watch the journey of evolution. We're not seeing that. And
it elevated Randy and it elevated Batista. We're not getting that. As a matter of fact, what are you getting? You're getting Braun and Bronson are just fodder for Roman Reigns to beat.
Yeah.
They're the pinfall guys. They're the fall guys.
The group doesn't even seem as unified as it once did.
No. Well, they're the fall guys for Roman Reigns, because Roman can't pin Seth right now.
Yeah. It's challenging, because we're if WWE really just tries to focus on John Cena for the rest of the year, which again they need to, they should. He's certainly deserving of it, and the rest of this stuff just kind of remains in this limbo for the rest of the year. It's not a really good way to start off 2026. You need to come into 2026 red hot, knowing that you're not going to get that extra boost in your press and coverage and ratings and everything, because John Cena is going to be gone. He's going to be gone. He's going to be doing Peacemaker or whatever else he's going to be doing.
All I'm going to say is thank God, as fans, we have NXT. Thank God we have TNA, both on the upswing. Thank God we have New Japan Pro Wrestling, which is doing some really good stuff that a lot of people aren't paying attention to for some reason, but it's really good stuff. Thank God for AAA. I don't know, some people are against the WWE partnership, but I don't know. They're pretty on fire. I've been watching their events, and they're on fire. They're actually capitalizing.
If you're only watching the co-produced, I mean, obviously they're all co-produced, WWE owns it, but the PLEs, the pay-per-views, that I can understand why you might feel that way, even though I don't think we've had a bad one yet. But I can understand that little bit of sentiment. But if you're watching the weekly stuff, it's amazing.
Well, think about those. They're PLEs, if you will, that are on YouTube for free, which is awesome. You know, that's a good price point, by the way. Those PLEs, though, they're showing in AAA, because they do have different bookers now. They're WWE's involved, but they have different bookers. They're showing that they know how to get Dom Mysterio and El Grande Americano over way more than WWE can. Hell, Finn Balor. The part of the Finn Balor face turn stuff is the Demonica stuff. You know, he's out there wrestling. You know, it's amazing. They're doing some good stuff. Mr. Iguana and Finn Balor. Who would have thought that that's a feud that any of us would be interested in? But yet it's entertaining as hell. So they're doing something. And also, I want to say thank God for the indies. Game Changer Wrestling is still putting on damn good shows.
Yes.
And other indies too. Pro Wrestling Revolver. There's a ton of indies out there. I'm just naming a couple because I don't want to get bogged down for too much longer. But they're putting on really, thought-provoking, good shows, and they're putting on stories. They're doing things that most indies didn't used to do, like real stories. And so if you're starved, if the fact that, let's be honest, if the takeaway here is at the end coming out of 2025, we've had some good in-ring action across the board from every company, could have been better, but we're really getting starved of great content from the two major companies in WWE or in North America, WWE and AEW. Everywhere else, though, seems to be on fire. So for wrestling fans who are watching all of it are actually still getting good stuff, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, if we talk about some of the biggest things to happen in WWE for the year, you're talking about John Cena and the heel turn and everything revolving around that, right?
Mm-hmm.
What else you got? Karrion Kross
Evolution.
leaving and everyone thinking he's going to stay?
Yeah. Well, in the men's division, you have Karrion Kross and you have John Cena saving it. And then the only other saving grace for WWE this year was Evolution. The Evolution PLE did great. Showed how they should run every PLE. And then I'm talking NXT, but I count NXT separate because, like I said, even WWE Universe marks don't watch NXT.
Yeah.
So NXT is almost like its own little thing. And Chef Michaels is out there, as we said before, proving why he's the Booker of the Year. He's putting on better shows than everybody.
Yeah.
To less of an audience, which is sad. TNA's put on amazing shows. This partnership, people can judge how this partnership has gone, but from the TNA side of things, they're putting on real good shows. They're putting on real good stuff.
Yeah, I don't see at this point, unless this really completely crashes and burns, I don't see TNA not coming out of this stronger. I mean, they already are. They've really come out of the gate strong. They've been doing some amazing shows. They've had some amazing houses for their shows as well. And I mean, this could completely blow up in their face, but I really doubt it. But I don't
think so.
Yeah, same with NXT. Like they've really embraced this and have really gone for it and really took everything that we saw. Because I mean, WWE had this formula and we know it didn't work, and they saw everything in there. We're like, nope, none of that worked. We're not doing that, and they're making it work.
Can you imagine that WWE propping up TNA? Like they did it with ECW back in the Monday Night Wars day, because that's real. We know that now.
It's real, yep.
Can you imagine in this case though, by propping up TNA, they create their own Problem? Like if TNA keeps getting better and WWE keeps driving fans away and AEW refuses to take advantage of it, what if for finally TNA gets that TV deal and TNA jumps on it and takes advantage of this partnership to the point where they go, oh, we're actually a contender. It could possibly happen. It's a long shot, but it's a long shot. Happen.
Just, you know, the international reach, obviously that is, you know, the WWE universe, that is a real thing, and not just talking about, oh, our universe. It's their extension to the international markets. That would be really tough. We've seen AEW try and branch out into this and had some success and then some not success. So,
but WCW knocked WWE on its ass for 83 weeks domestically, and that affected the bottom line more. Now, granted, nowadays the bottom line is going to be fine for TKO internationally, but what if we are talking about the wrong challenger brand? That's something we're going to have to evaluate as this goes on into 2026, is what if TNA ends up being the real challenger brand and WWE is the one that propped them up? Because domestically, they could still make a run. I understand. WWE's not going to be... WWE internationally is always going to be number one. I mean, I shouldn't say always, but there's a good likelihood to be number one, right? However, domestically, this could turn. Hence why we keep begging AEW, focus on home, focus on domestically. If you can get that market, that's big deals for you. If TNA, through this partnership, we're likely to see them get TV is what we're talking about, like on a network. That's going to be the next step to them making that next evolution. What if this partnership leads down to 2026, 2027, et cetera, leads to TNA being the challenger brand? That's going to be interesting to keep our eye on.
Well, you know, we started this whole thing off talking about how we've moved into Q4. And as we move through Q4, we're going to be talking about this kind of stuff. And we're going to make our bold predictions for 2026. And I'm pretty sure you're jotting that down right now as one of your potential bold predictions. And I would agree with that. I would say in 2026, there is a higher likelihood than I would have thought at the beginning of the year of the WWE TNA partnership ending, because of those type of reasons where we got our rights deal, we have to focus on this, we can't really work on this now, we have to focus on it and start really elevating themselves and challenging AEW, and then you go from there.
Yeah, what you created to challenge AEW then starts creating charging coming after you, because eventually you don't stop at the ceiling, you keep going. If momentum's taking you through the ceiling, you keep going.
Not to tease too much into bold predictions for 2026, because we are going to do that as a separate show. But one of them I'll give now as a little spoiler is an independent company is really going to rise in 2026. One of them is going to really make a big push and really rise up.
I mean, GCW is already there. Yeah, in a lot of ways, they're international shows. They're in every state. They're running weekly. They're definitely ECW. They're definitely that ECW feel. They are a niche market, but I think that they're going to get bigger.
Yeah,
I think once again, they have a kind of working relationship with World Wrestling Entertainment.
Yeah. I think they've really made major strides in 2025 to polish the product. Not so much like the in-ring product or whatever, just the way it's presented, the way it shows on pay-per-view and on TV and everything. I think they're going to continue that, and they're going to take a very large step in 2026.
Well, we'll talk more about that later on, but that's going to do it for this week's edition of Wrestling Night Live. So hit up nerdinitiative.com, the home of pop culture positivity. Make sure you're supporting everything over there. Movies, TV, sports, comics, everything. You name it, it's over there. Support the revolution of pop culture positivity. Make sure if you're not watching us on YouTube and you're watching us on one of the other products that we're on, whether it's X, Facebook, Twitch, Kick, or LinkedIn, of course, LinkedIn, it's doing numbers. It's doing wonderful for my profile on LinkedIn. I just want to throw that out there. Yeah. But where you should be really going over to? Go over to that YouTube channel. Make sure you smash the subscribe button. Make sure you click the bell icon for whenever we go live or whenever a new video is put up, because we got more content coming. I promise you that much. And hit those thumbs up to let the bosses know you want more content on the home of pop culture positivity on YouTube, the Nerd Initiative YouTube channel. So for until we continue these conversations, these more editorial ones, as well as covering, previewing Bound for Glory next week, because obviously that's a big one. We're going to be covering that, and we're going to be covering a lot more. Until then, for myself, for Miss Sammy, take care of yourselves, take care of each other, and most importantly, later, wrestling fans.